Night's about to pop in. Steve Pieczenik's with us, stevepiechenik.com, best-selling author, master spy, former head of PSYOPs for the State Department, involved in major regime change all over the world. Former member of the Council on Foreign Relations until he resigned and exposed 9/11. But it really is amazing. It's like Fight Club now. If you haven't seen Fight Club, you don't know, but that's kind of a socialist narrative where people try all sorts of dirty tricks. I mean, they sent a killer here. I'm going to talk about that next week. Cop got killed stopping him. It's like they try all these dirty tricks, but it's like there's so many good people, even in the FBI, in the local police, in the government, in the military, that are actually protecting the country outside of their orders, that it's like bizarre. It's like Fight Club now, where like the police just warn me about stuff and then it's true what they warned me about. It's really, I'll tell you, the most humbling thing in my life, Dr. Pieczenik, I know they got corrupt people in the system as well, to realize there's a whole war going on right now in the government for the heart and soul of this country, and that I wouldn't even be here right now if it wasn't just for prayers, but people taking action to support the Infowar. It's very humbling to realize that when you say Infowars is at the heart of this, I actually don't want that credit, but I know the enemy already knows that. I kind of want to be under the radar, but I guess we just have to go ahead and own it. But it is true that Infowars, all our guests, our crew, not just Alex Jones, I'm a small part of it, really are changing history together, and we're in an epic battle right now, Dr. Pieczenik.
That's correct, Alex. You know, I've said it a long time ago. When you were willing to bring me on and you were willing to listen to the narrative and I make predictions and they would come true, I said to you that eventually that will culminate in a candidate. That candidate I didn't know was going to be Trump. But I knew... You said it over and over again. I just can't believe how smart you are. It really is true. No, it's not about smart. All I am is really... I feel the American public and where they're going. It's not about intelligence. It's about emotions and understanding what you understand. It's the heartland of America. It's understanding that most of the people in this country do not make billions of dollars. Most of the people in this country are not millionaires. Most of the people in this country are not doctors and lawyers or politicians who have done nothing. Most of the people in this country have to work one job, two jobs, send their kids to school. They have a hard time making a living. And, by the way, they're proud to serve our country. They go to the military. They don't have to brag about it, and they don't avoid the draft. Now, I'm not talking about everyone. I'm just saying that the heartland of America has its own narrative. And what I was fortunate to do was to live in places like Montana, Florida, in the South, in the West, and see the different cultures meld together. But it's not an accident that you come out of Austin, Texas. It's not an accident that, you know, you're like, let me put it this way. When I grew up in New York on 108th Street, I listened to a music that was called rock and roll. We never heard of that. That came from the South. That came from Texas, Louisiana. That came from all kinds of places I never heard about. But it was infiltrated through a guy named Alan Freed in Cleveland to all these kids in New York, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and the North Coast. You're that Alan Freed. This is the comparable part to rock and roll. This is the content narrative of a major shift in our politics, both domestically and foreign affairs.
Well, I agree. I mean, 1776, that spirit survived all over the country, but really strong in some areas. And I think that's all we're doing is bringing a fire that still was burning and spreading it, not just in the country, but worldwide.
Well, you know, number one, we don't indict anybody or everybody. I've never been on this show where I've heard a massive denunciation of Muslims. Never heard it. Never heard anybody denounce anybody in this, not with credibility. We were on this show when we said, look, everything that happened has happened to us by us. In other words, the American
Stay there, doctor. Stay there. We're coming back with David Knight. You'll be able to finish up. Thank you. StevePieczenik.com. We have a dominant elite in this country that hates private property, that hates free market, that hates Christian values, family values, but then they're all ultra rich, but tell us we shouldn't have wealth. It is a very greedy, hateful system, the opposite of Renaissance, is attempting to take over the world. And it's a lot of special interests that exempt themselves from law so that they're ready to put a lot of onerous taxes on us. We have the Democrats calling for a surtax on the American people to pay for war against Islamic State. Ineffective air campaign has thus far cost $5 billion. Coons, the congressman, said in addition to authorizing Obama's unconstitutional authorization for U.S. military force, Congress was levying a new tax on Americans to pay for military actions against IS. Well, yeah, if you bankrupt the country, there won't be any more giant defense budget. I mean, leave the golden goose alone and take the egg each morning. I mean, even if they were crooks, they should be smarter than this, but they just have this greedy will to squeeze blood out of a stone. Dr. Pieczenik, I want to start throwing it here to David Knight for some of his questions and comments as we segue into him hosting most of this fourth hour today. But I see the attacks. I see the mainstream media attacks, literally. Thousands of articles a week on average now lying about this show, but lying about Trump, lying about everybody else, lying about anybody who isn't, you know, basically part of the end gang. It doesn't work, though. I mean, I'm not just saying that. Doesn't the establishment get that?
No, not really. When you're desperate, and this establishment is desperate, and we're talking about the military-industrial complex and Obama, he's not a man who has a strong sense of integrity or honesty. He likes to pretend that. The reality is they're working out of desperation. They have no ability to create a creative strategy or think out of the box. In fact, what's happening now, you should think of it as really the reward for 21 years of being successful. When people are dying or they're desperate in their ability to continue this addictive behavior of self-destruction, of destroying our economy, of going to war. No, it cost us $6 trillion, the Afghanistan war, and we've been there 14 years. Cost us another couple of $1 trillion in Iraq, and we've been there. The military-industrial complex doesn't care how many people die for them. They don't care how much money is sacked out of the system. Remember, a politician is not really a job. A politician is just an excuse for narcissism and sociopathy to get into power.
Look at how they treat the veterans. I mean, they
don't care. I mean, my friends who are in charge of the veterans, I talk to the veterans, they don't care. This is cannon fodder. What basically happens is the industry wants to go from bandages to bullets, and once they create the cannon fodder they need, they really don't care. But people like Trump are coming in, and people like yourself and the generals who do care, the ones who go to the Army hospitals, not the ones who have never been in the military, avoided the draft, like Jeb Bush or Obama or Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton, who's never been effective in combat, who's never been effective in creating.
Isn't that our greatest weakness, is that we have this leadership that is so soft?
And that's why we have to get rid of it. It's a cancer. It's a cancer of the spoiled, the entitled, and the narcissist. And Hillary is the classical pathological liar who can't tell you the right from wrong. I mean, I happen to know her daughter, who's a very sweet girl. But the reality is that Bill and Hillary are literally what we call folie à deux. Two people going along, making believe that their fantasy world can be imposed on our world. Bill tried it. It didn't work, really. And then he changed the narrative. Hillary will try, but my suspicion and my prediction is Trump will devastate her. He will devastate her to the point where physically she won't be able to handle him, because the amount of
obviously Hillary knows Trump has major backing by hardcore patriots, right? I mean, high level.
She knows that, but she marginalizes us. Basically, in her mind, we're not relevant to the major discord. What she's looking at is the electoral college, which can be jimmied with or can be fixed, or with the election booths that Sununu fixed for the Bush family. You know, these are the kind of things that Trump has to know that can be fixed or in any way jimmied and corrupted. When, in fact, the Republic, if they were to take a vote now, that's why I wanted a referendum now, Trump would come in without any discussion.
Yeah, even in fixed polls, he's dead heat or 2 points ahead of Hillary.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it really is as simple as the fact that, do you want this person who can do things come in, or you want somebody who's never been able to accomplish anything except to...
Well, exactly. We know Hillary and Bernie Sanders and Jeb Bush are a joke, and you notice that they've just been writing him off. Now they've got their different campaign people talking about killing him on TV and radio. I mean, they really are pieces of work. Don't they get running two dynasties is what created the vacuum that allowed a Trump to come in? And if they don't let something real happen after that, the pressure only is going to intensify?
They don't care. You have to understand the Clintons and the Bushes really don't care about the Republic. Basically, you have to remember that the old man, 41, George H.W. Bush, a Bush was really a car salesman. When he finally married a Prescott, they came into the social system and worked their way up as opportunists. Now, that's not what the Bush want to tell you, but basically that's the history. Clinton's history is a much more sordid one. He claims his father left and his mother was a nurse. Not correct.
She's a prostitute.
She was a prostitute, and he grew up in Hope, Arkansas. She was a prostitute for the mob, and that's where the mob would go before they came to Miami. So everything about Bill and Hillary is just an absolute nonsensical fantasy, which, people can enjoy or they can take seriously and claim, oh, we need a woman. The truth is we have 150 women who run companies like Northrop Grumman and major electronic companies who are far more talented than she is and will come in due time after Trump. And once Trump comes in, cleans out the place, he's going to leave. He's not a professional politician. His job is just to clean sweep this entire country so that we can have a system that has some credibility and accountability. That's his.
He says he's willing to go up against the mafias, and when he starts calling for, not letting corporations be tax-exempt offshore, going after Wall Street, when he starts going after those cash cows, he certainly is signaling he means war. He does say some incendiary things, but, again, nobody's perfect. I want to bring David Knight in here separately. He's about to take over in about 5 minutes. Steve Pieczenik is our guest. Comments, David, also questions for Steve Pieczenik. Regardless, no one can deny, David, and I want to get your take on this, that there is a huge counter coup or soft coup, I've used those terms as well, that Dr. Pieczenik used. It's so over the top that our military's publicly saying no. We told people years ago it was happening. Now it's confirmed. We had major guests confirming it. I talked to some of these military people. But this is huge. This is like a soft Valkyrie, a.k.a. 1944. David Knight.
Yeah, Alex, I would like to get Dr. Pieczenik's comments on what former Democrat presidential candidate Jim Webb said about Hillary Clinton this week when he attacked her for inept leadership. I think it was absolutely amazing what he put out there as a Democrat. He said Hillary Clinton should be called to account for inept leadership that brought about the chaos in Libya, the power vacuums that resulted in the rest of the region. While she held that office, the U.S. spent about $2 billion backing the Libyan uprising against Gaddafi, the uprising which in part was part of the Arab Spring, led directly to him being removed. Now we have 2,000 ISIS terrorists. It's exactly the same thing we've been seeing here. And, of course, Webb was
What do you make? I don't think he could hear you, but they've now piped him audio. Dr. Pieczenik, about even Democrats coming out now, members of Congress saying, Hillary, you ran the destruction of Libya and others, you're a joke.
I think they're extremely well-meaning Democrats. You can't put everybody in one pile, but I think if they were smart, if they really wanted to have a viable candidate, Hillary Clinton's not their candidate. I'm glad that Jim Webb came in as an independent. He served our country. He's a great American. He's a good novelist. But I think the Democrats have to seriously think that they want to put up a couple of $100 million on a person who's over 69 years old, who claims that she couldn't see, had a flu attack, and basically messed up in Libya, Benghazi, the State Department, and everywhere else, that this is not a viable candidate. I'm a realist, and I could care less whether she...
do our elites really want us to be run by dirtbag mafias?
Well, it's not a question, do they want to? The real question for them is, what do they get in return? The Clintons, with this Clinton Foundation around the world, are very good at being able to trade off all kinds of favors, even using the State Department. When she was in the State Department, she gave all kinds of kudos and goodies to Saudi Arabia, to all kinds of Salafist regimes who really persecute women. And at the same time, she claims she's for women's rights. Yet, on the other hand, she's funded by the very countries that suppress women all over the world, particularly in the Sunni world, and they know that, and she knows that, but she writes that off. The same thing with Bill. He doesn't care who he deals with.
That's right.
As long as they're funded. Their obsession is money and corruption. They don't know any other alternative to it. And I thought Obama would come in and be able to change that narrative, but in fact, it was pathetic. It was even a more pathetic narrative because he accomplished nothing, as opposed to Bill, where he might say something and there was a little bit of drama there.
I'm going to skip this network break. Last one of the week. No more. I can't keep doing this. And just please support our sponsors. Please check out the products, InfoWarsLife.com. David Knight's going to be taking over in the last half hour of the show, but I want to bring him back in. I mean, we're sitting here looking at this while the average American is watching NFL football or whatever. And I'm not bashing him. I get it. I used to love football, played football. But that's all entertainment. And I wonder what's going to happen as the general public, as the economy gets worse, begins to realize what's happening. Because if the police and military already know what's going on, if the bureaucracy already knows what's going on, not because they're perfect, but because they're more close to the info, it's their jobs, what is going to happen if the message of liberty has sold massively successfully with the people that run the country? If we've already basically won many areas of that fight, what's going to happen when the zombie public wakes up to it? I mean, I'm sorry. I know the globalists are going to try to run some kind of Black Lives Matter, kill the police movement, but that's not going to save them. They're not going to run a George Soros overthrow Ukraine type deal here and scapegoat the local police. And a lot of local police are out of control. But the point is, that's not our biggest issue. I mean, I really see them trying to run some Saul Alinsky socialist destabilization campaign. That's their plan at regime change, like a coup on our coup politically. But I just don't see that duck flying, Dr. Pieczenik. Then I want to get David Knight to pop in here.
I don't think that's going to work. First of all, I've met Soros. He's singularly unimpressive. He's a man who made his fortunes by chance and by luck and by being very devious during World War II and subsequently. So he's not a man of integrity or somebody I would admire. I even met him in Russia. But the reality is he is far less relevant to the American narrative than the Americans themselves. And what do I mean? The billionaires or the millionaires, they're not as relevant as the business people in the country who are the farmers, the car mechanics, the truckers. I mean, we have a vibrant economy that's going everywhere. Once Trump comes in and reverses inversion, which means he's going to take back those countries that decided to buy up a Ireland company on a piece of paper, everything is going to change. But we have to be able to elect that man. Once we can elect that man, the entire narrative will change. Up to that point, I just want to hold off on violence or on any other aspect of rebellion. But remember, we've been in rebellion since the beginning of the Republic. Jefferson.
That's why they're so scared of us. They know those coals are still in the fireplace and explode at any time. You're absolutely right. We have the power, raising our kids, being strong, working hard. They want to break our will by being good and doing what's right. That's literally a chain reaction. It's a spirit. And I don't use a spiritual term for no reason. It's electrical. It's science. We stand up. We trump them. We lay down and believe they're beating us. They win. Resistance is victory.
Correct. And the truth will overcome everything else, believe me. I mean, I've believed in the truth. I've worked for what I believe to be the truth. I can't say I'm sacrosanct.
None of us are perfect.
Honestly, that is exactly what we're about, and we're willing to die for it. It was as simple as that. And I staked out my claim the day 9/11 came in, and even before that.
Well, that's our ace. That's our ace of spades. Is these minions, these sociopaths, these sellouts, these narcissists? All they care about is their stinking lives. They don't realize there's something a lot bigger than that, the life of the culture, the life of the people. They are scared of us. They know we're not afraid of them, and they hate it.
That's correct. They hate themselves.
David Knight?
Basically, they're bringing it out.
Absolutely. David Knight, questions, comments, jump in here.
Yeah, Alex, when I look at this, and of course we all know and agree with what Jim Webb was saying about Benghazi, and as I look at Benghazi, and Dr. Pieczenik has talked about this, we've had Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer talk about it, laying out exactly what was going on, saying the same things that Jim Webb said about it. But, of course, there's a lot of people who still don't hear that. There's a lot of people who still have to understand that. But we don't have to convince everybody. You can fool some of the people all the time, but you need to just get a critical mass, and I think we're very close to getting that critical mass.
I agree with David. If you really begin to analyze the Revolutionary War, it was only 4 to 6% of the public that was involved in the actual fighting and demonstration. So David is correct. I don't need a majority. I just need a crux of the integrity. I need the Christians who understand what their values are. I need the people who understand their gun rights. their rights for freedom and who've studied it. I don't have a problem when people are watching football or games. They have to watch. There's too much background.
You got to have R&R. But you're right. Obama said bitter clingers, gun-owning Christians, people that believe in something. Doesn't mean we're perfect or have all the answers, but we believe in something, and it isn't him being God. It isn't MTV being God. And so here's my question.
Correct.
Here's my question to Dr. Steve Pieczenik.
Yeah.
How will the empire strike back, A, and then B, I've got a good idea, but you've been incited. Who are these special interests that are the real conscious enemies of this country?
The real special interests, ironically, are the ones who want to create materials that we don't need. For example, you have Senator Portman of Ohio, who insisted against the desire of Martin Dempsey and the Defense Department to build the M1 Abrams because he had 5,000 people unemployed, and he built the M1 Abrams tank. And the general said, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't need it. And Senator Portman said, we're going to have it. And they built these M1 Abrams, and we sold them overseas. In other words, we're building things we don't need. And it's time, as General Eisenhower said, to be careful of the military-industrial complex. They're very dangerous. They do not represent our interests, our basic goals, and they will show you on television every kind of insignia or notation that they represent the Republic. They don't. We don't need a war in Afghanistan. I don't need 776 bases all over the world in 226 countries. I need our troops to be better trained, to be located in the United States with forward positioning like SINCPAC and SOUTHCOM.
Look at the new fighter. They admit's a total piece of trash. It costs like $500 million apiece.
Total junk. And even Senator McCain, I must admit, said it was junk. But somehow, somebody upstairs is not willing to stop it, and that's where a Trump comes in terms of personality. Obama can't do it.
Well, that's why Trump is, in the final equation, good. The globalists have a method of their madness. They want to sabotage the U.S. down the road for this global government. They're setting us up for a fall. We do not want to go along with it.
Remember, what we need is an individual. Our country doesn't run in a collective, although that's what's been happening, collective decisions. But you see what happened in the soft coup, and it often happens that usually one or two of the individuals break out and change the narrative because they say, we can't continue with the old narrative. So Dempsey said, no, we're not going to confront the president. That was very smart. He saw what McChrystal did, and it didn't help him. So McChrystal had to leave. So Dempsey went in and instead worked with the Israelis and the Russians to bring in lousy equipment with using Turkish equipment. So he used his brain and used a very creative way of defying the community. Now, that's what we have in America. Our ability to be creative, think out of the box, and to be really ingenious and at the same time entrepreneurial makes us very, very special and exceptional. Not because we stand for this or that. It's because we are this and that. We are unusual. We are a Judeo-Christian country. We are able to build a business in 36 hours. We are able to have property that can't be taken away from me in France or in Bulgaria or in South Africa, as I had property taken away from me by Mbeki and the ANC. I mean, I've been through these experiences where you buy property and suddenly you see the leader of the country taking away that property and you're saying, wait a minute, where are my rules? Where are the rules and mandates of the law?
And if you have that rule that your property is your property, you're successful right there, and they're getting rid of that. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. That is the basis of America. We have to decrease the size of the government. We need somebody who can clean it out. Things that I used to do in the old days. In other words, clean out this administration, that administration, and a man like Trump can do it. Someone else on the spectrum can't. I don't see anyone else who can.
Yeah, I'm sad to say that the others just don't get it, or they care too much about the mainstream media. They don't get it's all about getting in the mainstream media's face. Dr. Pieczenik, have a great New Year coming up. Look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you for spending 15 years with us here on air.
And bless your audience. Thank you.